I'd now like to start us off with our presentation today with the title being What's Coming Next in Lupus Therapeutics, presented by Dr. Tselios. Just to give a brief bio on Dr. Tselios, he is an assistant professor of medicine with the Division of Rheumatology at McMaster University since 2021. He completed his basic training and PhD in Greece and came to Canada in 2014, where he worked as a postdoc fellow with the University of Toronto Lupus Clinic. His main clinical and research interest is the field of autoimmunity and the systemic lupus erythematosus, particularly the cardiovascular complications of the disease. He has published more than 70 peer-reviewed articles and book chapters, and he is currently developing the McMaster Lupus Clinic and Lupus Ontario and Matheson Lupus Biobank in Hamilton. And just for the description, this webinar will explore emerging biologic treatments for lupus, highlighting the latest advancements in therapy development. It will also delve into the potential of CAR T-cell therapy as a groundbreaking approach to managing lupus, discussing its possibilities and future implications. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dr. Tselios. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julian, and many thanks to Lupus Ontario, actually the board of directors and the entire community for inviting me to present this. How can I share my screen? Right. Okay, I found it, and I think I can handle this, right?
Yes, you are good.
Okay, that's great. I'm amazed by the work that has been done from Lupus Ontario, actually not only this past year, but all these years. I'm sure there are other people on the call with more experience, many more years in service for Lupus Ontario. I met the organization for the first time in 2014 when I came from Greece, and I can reassure you, many things have changed since then, from the last 10, 11 years now. Right, and I think you're doing a truly amazing work, well done, and I think the entire lupus community, not only in Canada but in the world, should be thankful. So we'll say a few things about what is coming next in lupus therapeutics, and that was these are my disclosures. We'll say a few things about the new biologics and this CAR T-cell therapy. There's no meeting on lupus without mentioning the CAR T-cells now, and I'll try to keep it simple. I'll try to make you understand what we're talking about. That was an idea we came with in the last medical advisory board meeting, and we thought that would be of interest. Why? Mainly because many things are changing in lupus. For the last decade, since 2011, that was the year we had the approval of Benlysta, anyway, belimumab, for lupus after many years of failed studies, and then it took us another 11 years in 2022 to have the approval of Safnelo, anifrolumab, for lupus. What we do and what other rheumatologists do around the world at this time, we follow usually these recommendations from the European League Against Rheumatism for the management of systemic lupus erythematosus. This is not nephritis, right? My friend Antonis Fanoriakis was the organizer anyway. There was a big group of experts, and they came out with these suggestions. We will not go in detail with that. I only want you to remember that hydroxychloroquine plaquenil is recommended to all patients, no exceptions. The contraindications would be if the patient is allergic to that, and we can't do this, right? Otherwise, all patients should be on hydroxychloroquine one way or the other. Steroids, this GC here stands for glucocorticoids, prednisone, and the likes. We can't take it off the picture yet, right? It's the drug that acts faster than anything else to put out the fire. So whenever we have really active disease, we need this. What we try to do, however, is to bring all the other drugs now, the immunosuppressors, methotrexate, azathioprine, mycophenolate. You probably heard about this, but mainly the biologics, belimumab and anifrolumab, you will see them with the green color here. Why? Because these have been tested in randomized clinical trials. Like, to my surprise and to everybody's surprise, these drugs that we have been using since the 70s or the 80s or the 2000s for MMF never went on a lupus trial. But we were using this by extrapolation from other autoimmune conditions somehow successfully. Now, what is the main message for this slide and for these recommendations? Here on the right side, you will see that we have now targets of management. And the target is a clinical SLEDAI of 0. That means that the patient will not have any symptoms. If the patient has no symptoms at all and the prednisone dose daily of 30, 40, 50 milligrams a day, is this considered a remission? No. We ask now for total prednisone dose of 5 milligrams or less. Right. That was a significant issue. Back in the day, rheumatologists and lupologists were believing that the threshold of 7.5 is considered to be safe for the long term because our patients and many others are taking prednisone for life. Okay, like a big word, but anyway, for prolonged periods of time. And now we took this threshold down a bit to 5, and I hope that in the near future we'll see lower thresholds and very close to 0. So how we're going to achieve this? We have a couple of drugs available, like anifrolumab, for example, Safnelo. That was from the 2 trials that were done for Safnelo, again, in non-renal, non-neuropsychiatric lupus. This is how most of the drugs in systemic lupus erythematosus start. Not kidney disease, not neuropsychiatric disease, mainly skin rashes and all these things, and arthritis, joint pain and involvement. So patients with Safnelo did substantially better than patients without Safnelo. I'd like to remind you that in lupus studies, when we say placebo, we mean that the patients are taking the standard of care. So they take the Plaquenil, they take some steroids, some prednisone, they take some immunosuppressants, plus the new medicine, like Safnelo in this case, or placebo, something that looked like Safnelo on the other arm. Substantially better results and fast results. After the 2nd or the 3rd infusion, Safnelo patients did better. And not only this, we said something about steroids and the need to reduce the daily dose of steroids and, of course, the cumulative dose over time. Safnelo was the first to show that this is happening in these patients, actually. From patients who started with above 10 and we went to below 7.5, the old threshold I told you about, more patients treated with Safnelo achieved this. And then the new threshold, above 10 they started and they went to below 5. Again, more patients on Safnelo achieved this. Safnelo had a really, really seminal study that was published shortly after the original studies. They had a long-term extension. This is the LTE here for 4 years. So for 4 years, patients on Safnelo and placebo continued to be followed, continued to gather all the data. And they showed that this reduction in the total, in the cumulative dose of steroids was true for year 2, year 3, year 4. So overall, we expect this patient to receive significantly less steroids. We have belimumab and Benlysta now, not only for lupus, we had this since 2011, but for lupus nephritis as well. And we worked together. The board of directors will remember that we had submitted our input to CADITH. This is the agency that gives approval, anyway, for public reimbursement of these drugs in Canada. And we were very, very successful. We can have public reimbursement for both Safnelo and Benlysta only for lupus nephritis since December 2022. Now, that was the BLISS-LN study. That was like lupus nephritis study. They took what they should take, what the standard of care for lupus nephritis is, usually steroids and mycophenolate, right? Plus Benlysta, or nothing, placebo, on the other arm. And patients with Benlysta did significantly better over time, both at 1 year, you will see here, both at 2 years, very, very good results. And this led to approval of Benlysta for lupus nephritis. I'll show you something, because when we talk about remission in lupus nephritis, we mean the reduction in the protein. Lupus nephritis is some protein leaking from the kidneys, right? Is this important? Why should we bother with this? Because if we let it untreated, this will lead over time to impairment of kidney function, and then all the way to end-stage renal disease and dialysis, right? You're losing your kidneys. This is the natural history of lupus nephritis. When will this happen? Like in the next 6 months? No, it will take years. It will take 4, 5, 10 years maybe, right? So we have like a proxy, this 30% or 40% decline in renal function. This eGFR measures the renal function. If we have like this decrease of renal function, most likely the patient will go on to develop end-stage renal disease and need dialysis in the next 2 or 3 years. So Benlysta was reducing the risk of a decline in the kidney function. It was protective of the kidney function. Was it only the kidneys? No. Actually, it was across the board. And this study came from Dr. Urwitz, really significant study. What was that? They put the patients who were treated with belimumab from the initial clinical trials, and then patients from the Toronto Lupus Clinic who had similar characteristics as the patients on the clinical trials. Similar with regards to age, to disease duration, what other medications we're taking, what other comorbidities we're taking, everything was matched, right? So they tried to mirror a typical randomized clinical study. What did they see? They saw that patients on Benlysta were acquiring significantly less damage, less irreversible damage over time. And this goes like over 8 years, right? Like a good chunk of time to say this. So standard therapy alone, Plaquenil, steroids, immunosuppressives, damage over time. And when I say damage, I mean anything from cataracts in the eyes, to osteoporosis and fractures in the spine, to diabetes, to malignancy, to anything. Right? Patients treated with belimumab, significantly less. So there was a protection, and now we have a term in lupus therapeutics, disease-modifying drugs, like drugs that can modify the natural history of the disease. And we have similar findings, actually, although with the significantly less time. We're talking only about 4 years with anifrolumab, with Safnello. Again, we did the same thing, like the patients from the trials and the patients from Toronto Lupus Clinic, like head-to-head, similar characteristics. Over 4 years, patients who were treated with Safnello, significantly less damage. Right? So both of these drugs, both of the biologics we currently have, protect our patients in the long term. How? Mostly by reducing the needs in steroids. So we have changed our targets now, our goals, and we know better, and we know deeper the pathophysiology of the disease, what is happening, what proteins are going wrong, what cells are going wrong. And we have many pharmaceutical companies actually really interested in lupus. And we have, this is a slide from Dr. Arnaud from France. For all the drugs, the monoclonal antibodies, the new drugs that are being developed for systemic lupus erythematosus or lupus nephritis. It's crazy, right? Like to my mind, it's mind-boggling. Like from 2024, 2025 early, and you will see different names here. We expect in the next 5 years to have an explosion, hopefully, of available drugs for lupus. Right, I'm not going to all this in detail. I will tell you only about 3 of them. And I chose these 3 because I believe that they're the most promising, or they are the most advanced in development. And this is the order I'm going to present this to you today. Okay, we'll start with obinutuzumab. Obi, we call it. Nobody can say that, right, in real life. Obi has been used for patients with hematologic malignancies, for leukemias and lymphomas. We have it in Canada. It's available, right? If you need it anyway, you can have it. But it was trialed now for lupus nephritis. What is Obi? Probably you will remember something about rituximab. We had this in the past, and in 2011, we had two unfortunately failed studies. We don't know why. They failed. We have some idea, right? But we don't know exactly why they failed. So obinutuzumab, Obi, is like this drug on steroids, Dr. Gurowitz says, much stronger than rituximab. Obi targets the B cells. What are the B cells? The B cells are the cells that are producing antibodies. And probably you heard like from your doctors, antibodies going up, antibodies going down, all these things. Like what is happening in lupus? The B cells are going berserk, and they produce antibodies against practically anything. And they may target the kidneys, the skin, the joints, the heart, like anything. So Obi, what is the target of Obi? To kill these bad B cells. So they gave this to patients with lupus nephritis, kidney disease in the context of lupus. How is this being given? Infusions, IV, day 1, day 15, and then every 6 months. Right, so you have 2 infusions at the beginning, and then every 6 months, you get another 2 infusions. After that, they talk about 1 infusion every 6 months. This will have a significant impact on the cost. We can talk about it. Right, so half the patients took this, half the patients took the standard of care, the mycophenolate and prednisone. Right. What were the strong points of this Regency so-called trial? It was ethnically diverse. They had many Hispanics, and actually you'll see here about half of them, or more than half of them, were of Hispanic origin. Why they did that? Because these patients have a worse outcome, a worse prognosis when it comes to lupus and lupus nephritis in particular. They started with the normal renal function. Okay, what was the something that I didn't quite like, and it had some impact on the results. They had about 58% of patients with previous episodes of lupus nephritis. So it wasn't only on patients who were diagnosed yesterday. About 58% had this like 1 year ago, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, so they had the flare. And this may underline the need actually like for a better treatment, a faster treatment, more appropriate treatment for these patients. So I'm not showing you the full table anyway, but patients with obinutuzumab did significantly better at 76 weeks. This is like 1.5 years. The same when we asked them to reduce the prednisone to 7.5, so the same for proteinuria, the same for overall renal response, like complete or partial or anything. Good. Right, and then the kidney function went up at 76 weeks by 2%, 2.3% in OB-treated patients, came down as expected by 1.5 in the other patients. This is not statistically significant, okay, and they didn't say anything from the company, but I think that this is very, very important because this would be the yearly decrease in the renal function, right? And our patients are not like 70 years old or 80 years old. These patients had the starting date at 30, 31 years old, right? So we can't afford to lose, say, 1.5% of renal function every year from the age of 30. By age 60 or 55, they will be on dialysis. So we need to do better about that. We discussed about this yesterday. There was a meeting of lupologists. We gathered in Toronto. People from all over Canada came to discuss about this. And we had some discussion about the subgroup analysis. Subgroup analysis in general, in a nutshell, patients with more severe disease, bad disease, did better when they took OBI. That was the message. So from the safety profile, they did have more infections expected. It's a deeper immunosuppression, a deeper weakening of the immune system. They had 3 deaths from the OB group, 1 from the non-OB group, most of them with COVID. The trial was running during the pandemic. They started I think like a few months, 6 months to 8 months before the pandemic, and they went all the way through the pandemic. And of course, for the first like a year or more, we didn't have any vaccines. The deaths occurred during that time period. After the vaccination, we didn't have any issue. So OB in general achieved superior outcomes compared to placebo. More infections, okay. The OB trial was published about a month ago, and they submitted their application to the FDA and Health Canada in the early days of March. The advisory board we had yesterday with the other lupologists and some nephrologists actually was to see how we'll bring this to Canada as soon as possible. And we are hopeful that we'll have this in Canada by the second quarter of 2026. We can discuss about this more if you like. I would like to say a few things about this drug, DZP, dapirolizumab. This is something that with a totally different mechanism of action, right? The CD40, okay, I'm not saying much. The B cells, we talked about the B cells, are the bad guys, but they need others to tell them to start producing antibodies. And the others are the T cells. And we know the chemical signals, actually, this is the language of the cells. They produce something, they secrete in the blood, this something will go to the other cell, they will tag it and say, oh, okay, start like making trouble, right? This drug targets exactly this communication, this crosstalk between the cells. And that was the Phoenix Go trial. One, phase 3. Phase 3 is the trial that needs to be done in order to go to the FDA or Health Canada and say, look, guys, we have a phase 3. It's successful. Please consider us for approval. So this could happen, like this got in non-renal lupus, general lupus with skin and joints. As I told you, these were the baseline characteristics. We ask for specific numbers when it comes to disease activity, specific numbers when it comes to time since diagnosis and all these things, all comparable between the active drug and the placebo. What happened? The DZP achieved significantly better outcomes. And by better outcomes, you can see here they had like a 15 or even 20% response with other like endpoints better for this drug and a 50% reduction in flares. This is a major issue in lupus. Like we achieve remission in our patients, and then our patients will flare. And about half the patients will keep flaring, right, no matter what. If we have something to cut this off, to prevent flares from happening, we will have less trouble, less steroids, less damage over time, and this is what we want, actually, as doctors for lupus patients. Significant reduction when it comes to the steroids, right? That was like a 1-year study. We did not have any issues. I'm only bringing up this one myocardial infarction in the DZP group. We have tried this molecule in the past, a similar molecule in the past anyway. It was abandoned because it was found to cause thromboembolic events, clots. And clots may be in the heart, may be in the brain, like a stroke. You don't want this. You certainly don't want this. Right? Now, this is modified, the molecule, safer than the previous one. We saw 1 death to sepsis infection. Right? This drug is being developed in another phase 3 study, and we expect to have this in early 2027. If the second phase 3 is positive, they will go for full approval. Again, this for non-renal lupus. The third I would like to tell you about is this ianalumab. Ianalumab is targeting the B cells, the bad guys, but with 2 different mechanisms of action. So if one will not be enough, the other one, hopefully, will come in play and will take care of business. Right? Ianalumab I have this in the clinic, and it's in phase 3. The phase 3 trials, 2 of them are running now. I have it in the clinic in McMaster, and we started one patient, and we'll see how she goes. What happened, I will only show you this. With the blue line are the patients who were treated with the ianalumab. With the red line, the patients who were treated with placebo. Again, like the standard of care, plus ianalumab or not. So the patients are doing better, and then at week 28, they think to cross them over. So patients who were treated with placebo went to ianalumab, right, after 6 months of treatment. And then these patients start going up, and by week 52, after 1 year, they're doing as well as the patients who were originally treated with ianalumab. We haven't seen this study design often in lupus therapeutics. We liked it a lot. It's very promising. And I hope that we will have it soon. The trials will conclude in 2026, both trials. The company is hopeful. I'm optimistic. And this is why I brought this in McMaster. Right? I think that this will be the next like monoclonal for general lupus. Right, many other outcomes anyway. I don't want to bother you with this, with the details. All the markers of lupus, like complements are going up, DNA is going down, all good. We had no significant issues with safety. This thing is like showing promise. Now, I'll tell you a few things about CAR T cells. And I'm sure you've heard about this, and they even made it in the social media like a lot, and in the papers a lot. What is this issue? This is the first patient who was treated with this approach in Germany, in Erlangen, in March 2021. And that was a young patient, 21 years old anyway, who had horrible disease. By horrible, I mean like practically everything was affected, including the kidneys. The kidneys were failing dramatically. They have started, our colleagues over there, like practically everything under the sun, including biologics and rituximab and belimumab. They didn't have Safnello at the time. It wasn't approved. But anyway, Safnello was not approved for lupus nephritis. They started even like wildly immunosuppressive and toxic drugs like cyclophosphamide. And if you see the numbers here, nothing worked. The patient would die. And then they say, okay, let me go back. They had the luck of having hematologists in the same hospital. Why I'm saying this? We have been using this CAR T cell therapy for hematologic malignancies, for lymphomas and leukemias, and now multiple myeloma, right, for a few years now. And it seems to be working well. It's another line of treatment for these patients, right? What are they doing? They will take your own blood, they will send it to the lab. In the lab, we'll try to transfer a gene in the DNA of these cells with the virus. The virus will be deactivated. It will not give you an infection, right? Now we have other methodologies, other treatments actually, where we can like insert that gene in the DNA of these cells without viruses, without anything. They will multiply these cells, and then they will give this to the patient. So the patient will take a genetically modified, engineered, they call it, cell, but cells from themselves. When the cells will enter the bloodstream, they will start proliferating, multiplying. They will become more and more. And this gene will help the cell, this CAR gene, will help the cell to fix something out on the surface, on the membrane, that will attack the bad guys. And we can fix it with whatever we want. Whatever target we choose, we can fix this. So what they do, they stop all the medications in this patient, right? Only some prednisone, 5 to 20, depending on the day. This is not my words. The Dr. Set's words. Gave a lecture to McMaster a few months ago. Some drugs, fludarabine and cyclophosphamide, for preconditioning. What is preconditioning? Kill everything else and give space, make space for the new cells to come and expand, right? And they give them like 1.1 million cells per kilo of body weight. Okay, we don't mind about this. What happened? Only this I want you to see here. The protein was bad all these years, actually. Up to that time, this is the time zero when the patient took the CAR T cells. And then within a month, actually, everything goes down to zero here. Within a month. Similarly for the DNA antibodies, for the C3, like really bad disease, and then the patient in a month, nothing. This patient now is 3 years drug-free remission. Now, drug-free remission equals cure. I don't know. Nobody knows. So since they had the know-how now with one patient, right, they proceeded with another 4 patients, and they made them 5. They published this in 2022. Again, median age 22, young patients, bad disease, all with active lupus nephritis, right? All with all the previous drugs that we have been using traditionally in lupus therapeutics. And then what happens? All these patients, the SLEDAI, like a measure of clinical activity, goes down to 0. In 3 months that they checked again, goes down to 0. The protein in the urine, down to 0 in 3 months. Right? Great. I won't say, don't look at this. Don't look at this. What I would like to say is that these cells will go from 0 to many millions in 9 days. The B cells, the bad guys, will go down to 0 in 10 days. And then they will come back to normal in about 3 months. The cells that are coming back to normal are not bad, activated like the previous ones, are naive, new, right? Not giving trouble. And this is what this tells you. But anyway, what's happening in the long term, say like in 24 months, in 8 lupus patients, we saw that like last year, we had some patients from Germany, some patients from the States. All of these patients went down to 0 disease activity, right? And they stayed at 0 up to 2 years from the initial infusion. That was one infusion, eh? Not multiple, not every 6 months, every 12 months, every 2 years, one. And now they came up with this therapeutic protocol for CAR T cell therapy. They screen you and everything. They take the blood cells, this leukapheresis, and they need some time. They say like 10 days for manufacturing. Now we can have it in 2 days. Right? You will get in the hospital and you will stay there for 10 days. Right? They will give you this, and then you will stay there for 10 days. I told you that we can have other targets. This is coming from a Chinese study. They don't have the usual CD19 that the Germans used, but another molecule that will go on to kill some more specialized B cells. So they will try to get every B cell under the sun, right? And they had like really good results with this approach as well. In the ACR, the American Congress of Rheumatology, a few months ago, like in Washington, another team from China, another group, they said something about these NK cells. So no, not the typical T cells that we were using, but other cells. And when we asked them like why they chose something different, like we knew about the T cells, they said that they're using this line of therapy in China for rejuvenation. No idea, hadn't heard about this, have not heard about this. I don't want to go there. I won't say anything. But anyway, these drugs were working not as well as the others, but it seemed that they're working. Side effects. Cytokine release syndrome, what is this? Will give you the genetically modified cells, and these cells will kill the B cells, right? when we're killing cells in the body, these cells will die and will get out whatever they carry. And all these are cytokines. So these will be released, proteins that will be released in the blood. And these proteins that will be released in the blood will do inflammation, horrible inflammation, fever, rashes, joint disease, all this thing. 23 to 31% in lymphoma, 23 to 46% in the acute lymphoblastic leukemia. We don't have this so much based on our limited experience. Why? Because we kill significantly less cells. When you have cancer, the cells are multiplying uncontrollably. So you will have like a huge cellular load, a huge burden, right? In autoimmune conditions, you have like less, it's not cancer, right? So less cells killed, less chances for this complication. Neurotoxicity, bad. 67% they say with ALL, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, 62% with lymphoma 1 to 3 weeks after the infusion. And usually you can't talk, shaking, seizures, and coma and death. What are they doing? They give you to write a given sentence every day, and they watch how you write, how's your penmanship. And if this is changing, this is a very, very early sign for this kind of toxicity. Have we seen this in autoimmune diseases? No, we have not a single case. We have about 80, 85 patients actually worldwide now treated with this CAR T cell therapy. We haven't seen these icons, they call it. And of course, cost. Everything comes down to money, right? We're talking about $500,000 per patient. A lot of money. We can't handle it. We can't afford it, right? Specialized facilities, we have 3 centers in Ontario who are doing this: Ottawa, Toronto, and McMaster, the hematologist. I'm trying to convince mine actually to bring at least a study of CAR T cell therapy, so we'll have the option if needed, right? Nobody else has it. It's like it's either like Hamilton, Toronto, Ottawa. And of course, they're talking about now allogenic off-the-shelf CAR T cells. What is this? To take cells from me, right? Fix it, modify it, and give this to the patient. Of course, this carries the risk of allergic reactions and all these things because the patient will receive like foreign cells from me, not from them, right? But we can have it ready, and we don't need this time, this window actually. Like now they say that it's 2 days. I don't think that should be an issue. But anyway, they're trying to have it ready made. This comes from the ACR, actually, like a few months ago, I told you, but we have now 52 patients with systemic lupus erythematosus. I'm following this very closely because it seems very intriguing. 52 patients with systemic lupus erythematosus treated with CAR T cell therapy around the world. Right, these 18 patients had a follow-up of 12.5 months, say like 1 year. They were seeing all these side effects, not much. And all these patients did amazingly well. So very promising results. Everybody's running actually like a randomized controlled trial for CAR T cell in autoimmunity in rheumatology now. 67, I checked like 2 weeks ago, right? 67 are trying to recruit patients. We don't know, of course, the optimal dose, like what the optimal target would be, if we can like engineer other cells, or how we'll like choose these patients. And of course, my question, right? Everything else is for the others. My question is when, right? In disease course. If they were telling you, if this works as amazingly as it seems to do, and they will tell you, look, we'll have to pay $500,000, but you will forget about the disease. Sure, you forget about it. No other doctors, no Dr. Tselios, no other like drugs, no life labs, no nothing. Go back home, right? Would you take it? Right. So we said a lot about like monoclonal antibodies and CAR T cells, and the question is like, okay, Dr. Tselios, like one or the other. Tell me, what is happening What is happening with the monoclonal antibodies here? We know them for years, right? And we have been using this in rheumatology since like early 2000s or even before 2000. We have like 25 years of experience. We know what is happening with them. We have it available relatively. Okay, we can like buy it now. But we have to give them again and again and again. Say like Saphnelo is like once a month, right? Belimumab is once a month or a weekly injection, right? And because of this half-life, actually, we have to give it again and again and again. And my patients are asking me, Dr. Tselios, is it for life? It's a big word. It's a big word. Back in the day, we would say for life, yes. Now we don't use this. We don't say this. We say like for a few years or several years, and we'll say. What is happening with the CAR T is a living drug. You will give them, say, like 1 million cells, we said, for per kilo of body weight, and this will expand, right? For how long are they going to live in your body and take care of business? We have data for 3 years. For 3 years, these guys are there and suppressing the inflammation. These guys will go anywhere in the body. They will go into the tissue, into the kidneys, for example. We can't achieve this with the antibodies we have. Now, the OB has some penetration in the kidneys, yes, partial, not complete. This will have complete. They will kill the bad guys wherever they hide. We don't care. Cons, cost. We can't have it like anywhere we want. And of course, we have to be careful with the side effects, right? It's not like easy. So I leave this up for discussion. This is all for me. I hope I didn't give you a headache with all these things, but I'll be more than happy to take questions and discuss further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tselios. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your time and that wonderful detailed presentation, and especially your insights. It's really exciting to see all the different studies being ramped up. And yeah, what really stood out to me was the explosion of available drugs for lupus. That was really great to hear.
We see, Julian, a revolution in lupus. Actually, like nobody was dealing with lupus like in the past decade. And now everybody has an interest in lupus, and they approach me from pharma companies like to work together. And I think I would like to say that the role of the patients, and particularly patients organizations like Lupus Ontario, like a strong, long-standing patient organization, is crucial. Now they will ask for patient advocates. They will ask for patient partners. And I think that soon we'll see patient partners in the designs of the study. And not only in the advocacy to the regulatory authorities if the studies are going well or not. We see like an engagement that we never saw before.
Wow. Okay, really interesting stuff. And I'd like to just to be mindful of time, I'd like to open the Q&A function to
Yes,
all
of course.
those in attendance. Feel free to either use the function or just in the chat. I'll just kind of screen through them. The first question here is, in addition to renal function, is there any evidence with these medications pertaining to heart function protection?
For heart function?
Yeah.
We don't have any like good data for heart function. What is mainly happening with heart in lupus is like atherosclerosis, a premature heart disease, mainly because of the steroids and disease activity. So we think that if we have less amount of steroids over time, we will have less heart trouble over time. We have shown this with belimumab, right? From like big administrative studies in the States, like a 3 or 4 times, if memory serves well, less heart disease in patients treated with belimumab over time.
Okay.
Right, we haven't seen this with Saphnelo, say, or let alone the in development drugs.
Okay. Fantastic. Another question, it's kind of a 3-part question. For SLE patients whose disease actively is managed but with pharmaceuticals such as steroids, hydroxychloroquine, and immunosuppressants, but not in remission. Would it be possible to or advise to try switching to one of the newer lupus specific biologics? And then,
They're not in remission despite being on plaquenil and steroids and immunosuppressives, right?
okay. And
That was the question. What was the question exactly?
sorry, then it followed up with, if so, how would the transition from regular pharmaceutical therapy to lupus specific biologics proceed?
Right now, as we speak, these patients can have access to Safnello, anifrolumab, if they don't have lupus nephritis. Right now, they can apply. We fought for this and we won for all patients in Ontario, at least. Like in BC, they still don't have it. But in Ontario, they can have public access to Safnello without any copay, without anything.
Okay.
Right. If they have lupus nephritis, they can have access to belimumab, Benlysta, again, without any copay. We work together with Lupus Ontario like hard for this project, and we are very proud for this.
Okay. And the last part of that question was, would the patient need to completely taper off the pharmaceuticals before beginning biologics, or would the pharmaceutical tapering?
No. Usually we add the biologics on top of what they already take.
Okay.
And then when we get to remission, we start taking out stuff, steroids first. This is the goal, right? To get rid of steroids. Then the immunosuppressives. The plaquenil, we don't touch it yet.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
This is the main strategy anyway.
Okay, thanks for the answer. And then another question is, what are the advantages or disadvantages for a patient joining a clinical trial?
Right. That's a great question. Why we have clinical trials actually, and why I'm trying actively to bring as many as I can in McMaster. One, the clinical trial will have, despite the Safnello, the availability of Safnello and belimumab, we still have patients who do not respond, even to these advanced therapies, right? So I would like to have another line of therapy for my patients. The patient who will go into clinical trial. The advantage is that they will have a closer follow-up that is mandated by the study design. So you will be seen by me or the principal investigator anyway. This is how they call them, the doctors there. On a monthly basis, we will have like some more frequent communication, exactly because you are theoretically taking an experimental drug, right, that we don't fully know its safety profile. The randomized controlled trials, the clinical trials, have a placebo arm as well. And unfortunately, I'm not allowed to know what I'm giving you. You are not allowed to know what you get, right? And this is to safeguard, I mean, you will have to be impartial, right? So it's impossible for us to know. I told you about the Analumab trial, for example, and I fought to bring it to McMaster because the ratio of patients who are actively treated with the active drug, I mean, to placebo is 5-2. So we have like a 70% chance of getting the active drug and 30% to get the placebo. Most trials are 1-1, so it's like a 50-50. You flip a coin, you take this or the other one. And of course, this is how science moves forward. Like for obinutuzumab, for example, now that we'll have it hopefully in Canada in about a year from now, 271 patients went to that thing. They took the obinutuzumab or the placebo, right? And they added all this value.
Great, thanks for that explanation and diving deeper into that. And yeah, overall, we really appreciate your expertise. We're really lucky to have you with us today. And with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to June.
Can I
Oh yeah,
ask
sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Can I ask a question to the panelists actually? Like this is what keeps me up at night. So if they would tell you, give me $500,000 and you forget about the disease, what would you say? from the beginning, right? You were diagnosed, you had some troubles, you did your blood work, your urine test, your this and that. You go to Dr. Tselios, and Dr. Tselios tells you, look, I think you have systemic lupus erythematosus, and we have this option. Right. I'm thinking about this. It's not an easy. Jen, what do you think?
Well, Dr. Tselios, I'm not sure everybody has $500,000
No,
available.
certainly not. Certainly not. Right. Certainly not. Now, $500,000 based on the pharmaceutical companies, right? Now, PMH downtown Toronto, the Princess Margaret Hospital, they're trying to make an in-house process of doing this, and they hope to reduce the cost to 50 or 60,000.
Okay.
Right. It's still expensive. I'm not saying the opposite, right? But if this is a cure, like I'm telling you, the first patient, no drugs, no nothing for 3 years. She still goes to her doctors, of course, right? Because nobody knows how things will turn out. But it's if you think about it, it's amazing.
It is amazing. No,
Right.
I mean, as you said, we've come a long way from where we are now. So if I understand correctly, the question is the patient willing to pay for a cure?
Or if the payers are willing to pay, a non-lupus nephritis lupus patient costs $8,000 to the system in Canada. And this study was published a couple of years ago by Dr. Clark, right? In Alberta, I guess something similar will stand true for Ontario. A patient with lupus nephritis costs $50,000 a year.
Through their life, 50,000 a year.
Per year.
Okay.
Not lifetime, per year. Per year. So, for food for thought. Anyway, we'll have more data, right? And I would be happy to discuss again if you want. Right, we'll have more data like soon.
It's an interesting thought, especially for the cost that we have. So not just to the healthcare industry itself, that OHIP is covering, but each one of us, sees other care practitioners that cost out of pocket. We take supplements that cost out of pocket. We develop comorbidities that also require additional costs and things. Those all add up that we already pay for. So would I have a ton of money right away to give to this? No, but like you were saying, the thought of putting some money up front, especially if the government is covering some, to be cured is
it's a lot.
an incredible idea.
You know what I was thinking, Lisa? Like I'm telling you, like I'm thinking about this, like, and I'm trying to convince my hematologist actually to give me one spot. But the issue is that we don't have the capacity. This approach has been approved for multiple myeloma and lymphoma and leukemias. They send patients to Buffalo as we speak for stem cell transplantation because we can't have them all here. It's impossible. And there is an agreement between OHIP and Buffalo to treat them there. But the current biologics, the biologics we have now, cost around $24,000 a year. Like if we have something in-house, say like in 1-2 years from now, there would be like 2 years of biologics. And that the government pays. Right. Anyway, okay, let's move forward.
It's an interesting long-term thought process, though, for costs. Yeah.
This is my issue. Like, if we're talking about cure, I would go to the premier actually, and I would tell him, look, this is what's happening. These are the data, right? This is how much you will pay for these people here, for all these young women and men, for the rest of their lives.
One of the things that I think that is really incredible is, our goal is to live life without lupus. This is our tagline. This is our movement.
Right.
And we're finally at the precipice of some kind of research that might actually result in that, which is absolutely mind-blowing.
We don't have anything in Canada as we speak, right? There are some preliminary discussions with PMH. I think maybe by 2026 we'll have it. Like early 2026 we'll have it in PMH.
It's amazing.
I'm a firm believer in this, Jen.
Mm.
A firm believer in this, yeah.
Well, we all very much hope that you are right.
Okay. Okay. Me too. I don't want to keep you from your weekend.
Not at all. I want to thank you very much, as Julian said, for presenting for us. As
Pleasure is
always,
mine.
very informative and insightful. And we will look forward to hearing from you again on how it's
Absolutely.
going.
My pleasure.
Right.